Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the code breakdown. This episode we're going to be focusing on Cucumber, actually getting to using it. The project that we're going to be working on is the code breakdown web app, which is a Rails app, and currently I just started it so that there will be somewhere that we can all go and have access to all the screencasts that we're making here. So to start, we're going to start by creating a Cucumber feature file. To do this, you create a file in the features directory, and you call this, let's say the first feature we're going to build is called listing screencasts. So let's call it list screencasts.rb. So we declare it as a feature by doing feature : at the top, and then we give it a name, list screencasts. So this next section, oh wait, sorry, my bad. Let's start over. I did something wrong. You can see here, what I did wrong is pretty simple. The features file needs to not be called RB, it needs to be called list screencast feature, okay? Because it's a feature file, of course. So if we go back and we do list screencast feature, we declare it as a feature at the top with feature : then the name, then this next section is really just a comment, but there's kind of a structure to it generally, which is in order to find screencasts as a guest or user, I want to view a catalog or a list of screencasts. Okay, so that's just a comment really, but it is generally done in that form, either with the as a guest or user part, and this I want to view a list of screencasts in order to find screencasts, or done in order to find screencasts as a guest, I want to do that. Technically it doesn't really matter. The next step, once we have that outlined, is to really implement a scenario. If I could type scenario and give it a name. So in this case, let's say guest viewing list of screencasts. Okay, so that's the name of our scenario. So now scenarios have the breakdown of kind of 3 steps: given, when, and then. So Gherkin is the language that Cucumber uses, and that really is based on natural English language with a few keywords, and those keywords are feature, scenario, given, when, and then at the most basic level. So givens are used to set up your precondition or your initial state for your test or your scenario. So in this case, we are going to say, like, given I am a guest and a screencast exists. So that's my given state. And you can chain things, notice, as I just did using the and keyword. So this basically is 2 givens right here. So the when is going to be an action that's performed. So in this case, let's say when I go to the screencast catalog, that's the action that I'm going to perform, and then the then is the expectation, right? So then I should see the screencast. Okay, now the key thing to note here is that I wrote all of these in very generic terms. Whoops, I wrote all these in very generic terms, and you should also pay attention to a couple terms that seem to pop out somewhat naturally. We can see that we have a concept of screencasts here. We can see that we are going to have a concept of a guest user and a regular user from this, and we can see that there is some sort of list of screencasts or catalog. And because I'm interchanging the name catalog and list of screencasts, that's probably a pretty good code smell that I need to clearly define that. But it's good enough to work with now, and we can refactor that out into a better terminology as I decide which one I like better later on. So now that we have a feature file, let's run that. And you can run that by running bundle exec cucumber. I have it set up to run inside my Vim session. But when you run that, you'll see that basically it has one undefined scenario and 4 undefined steps, and it will dump out this example step definitions here. So if you copy that, we can go and we'll add the step definitions next. So step definitions go inside features / step definitions / and then you usually have a step definitions file that parallels your feature file. So we're going to have a list screencasts steps.rb, and we paste those in. So once we've pasted those examples in that it gave us, we can jump back to the feature file and run that test. And what we'll see now is that we have a pending step called given I'm a guest. And that's pending because we just copy and pasted their example step definition, which has a call to pending. Pending just means it's not implemented yet. It's a shortcut way for you to say this step is not implemented yet and it still needs to be done. It's kind of like a to-do list for you, if you will. If we go back, you can notice that these are really matching regular expressions against the natural language. It happens that these regular expressions in these cases are exact strings, but you can also use capture groups and more advanced regular expression tools like that to generalize your step definitions if it makes sense. In this case, it doesn't really matter. So let's go define what is it exactly that I'm trying to do when I say I'm a guest. Well, actually, that's going to be the default case. So we don't want to do anything. So let's jump back to the test now that I adjusted that step definition, rerun the tests, and we should see that it passes that step now. So now it passes the given I'm a guest step, and it leads us on to the next scenario step, which is and a screencast exists. So let's go back to the step definitions, and now we got to modify and a screencast exists to actually do something. So I kind of like this term catalog, so let's go with this term catalog, at least for now. We're going to have something. We're kind of coding in terms of hope. We're pretending that things exist, and we're going to let our tests drive out the actual implementation of those things. And this is generally kind of the style of BDD testing, is that you often write tests in the way of hoping that objects exist and then have those tests force you to go implement those objects. So let's say we have this catalog module, and we're going to have its stub. We're going to have a stub of the all method on that catalog, and that's going to return basically an array of, it's going to be an array of hashes, and each hash is going to have a name of some screencast in this case, because we only going to have one, and description, which is some description. And we'll just start with that for now. I'm sure that these screencast hashes or objects, which they may turn into in the future, are going to have more attributes than that, but that's a good start. Let's see where we're at with that. Let's go back, run our test, see what kind of error we get. So now we see uninitialized constant catalog. That's because we just said we wanted to use catalog, but we never implemented the catalog module. So let's go do that real quick. Let's edit lib catalog rb and define module catalog end, right? So we go back to our test, run it again. Now I'm suspecting, that it failed on the method stub. So by default, Cucumber does not support the RSpec stubs, so we have to require that from Cucumber, and you can do that by adding the require Cucumber RSpec doubles file into your Cucumber end. So once we do that, we can close the Cucumber end file, rerun our tests, and now we have two of our steps in our scenario passing, given I am a guest and a screencast exists. So all of our setup for our scenario is passing. So now we're on to the when I go to the screencast catalog. So let's go implement that step definition real quick. In this case, we want to say go to the screencast catalog. So let's say we do a get request to /screencasts for the catalog. Let's say that happens to be the path where our catalog exists and we want it to exist. Go back, rerun our tests. Now we should get a failure, probably saying a route doesn't exist. Yes, no route matches get for screencasts. So let's go implement our route, open the routes file, add a resources entry for screencasts. So close the route file, rerun our tests. And now we get uninitialized constant screencast controller because Rails is trying to instantiate the screencast controller. So we can actually go and fix that by getting out of Vim real quick and doing bundle exec Rails generate controller screencasts. And that will generate the screencast controller for us, and you'll notice it also generates kind of a stubbed out screencast controller spec, screencast helper, and a helper spec, and a JS CoffeeScript file, and a CSS SCSS file. So that's kind of the basic stubbing of the screencast class. So let's go back to Rails, run our test again, see if we got any further. So now it's complaining that the action index could not be found for the screencast controller. So now normally at this step I would jump down to RSpec and I would be testing this out further at the RSpec layer and then jumping back up to the Cucumber layer. But because I'm trying to keep this screencast brief and I really want to focus on Cucumber, I'm going to bypass that. So let's go try to implement the index action directly on the screencast controller. So if we go screencast, let's refresh controller. So we go here, def index. So I implemented the index method just as plain method with nothing special going on. Go back, run the tests. We should get further. So now it's complaining that it's missing the view template for the index action, and that makes sense because we haven't written one yet. So let's go edit app views controllers, or app views screencasts index.html.erb. Just save that as an empty view template. Go back and run our tests, and that should get us past that. In general, I try to do the smallest amount of code possible to make the tests pass. That forces me to refactor the tests to have better coverage basically, and force me to do the proper implementation. That's generally what you want to do in terms of BDD. So if we look here, now we got past when I go to the screencast catalog. Now we're at the last scenario step, which is then I should see the screencast. So we are actually at our expectation. So if we go to the step definitions for that, we can go here and we have last response is a special method from rack test, which is what we're actually using to test this right now, which is the default kind of testing framework for testing with Cucumber. So last response body is going to be the response body, and we can use should have content from Capybara to verify that it has the content some screencast. So if we do that, that's our validation and assertion basically that it has this screencast name in the page when we go to get/screencast. So if we bounce back up to the feature, run it again, we should see that fail, and we do, and we see that it's a proper failure in that it's expecting to see the text some screencast, but it's only seeing the text code breakdown. So that means we need to go modify our controller and our view probably to actually output the screencast. Now normally this would be tested inside of RSpec and we would have popped back out and we would have had RSpec to verify this before we got to this point, but I'm skipping that as I said before. So let's go back to our controller real quick, screencast controller. Let's say we're going to have some screencasts. We're going to assign those from the catalog all in the controller. And we're also going to need to edit the view index. And this is going to have to iterate over all the screencasts. Like so. And I don't know, let's make some li. Each one, let's have it be in an li, and the name of the screencast is what is going to be displayed in the li, and then we can end our loop, save that, and let's go back to the feature and run our feature. And we have a successful cucumber. So basically we just ran through at a high level defining a scenario in terms of a feature and going through and actually implementing all of the step definitions and writing the actual acceptance test. And now we have a working cucumber scenario. So I think that's going to be it for this screencast. The next screencast will be kind of just like this, but in terms of RSpec, and we'll focus on doing a deep dive with RSpec and then seeing the relationship between the two. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.